Can I retire at 40? A case study looking at the financial independence retire early movement. Our individual is Amit, his age is 39, portfolio 635,000, split between a global tracker and the S&P 500. He's got an emergency fund of only £4,000, a mortgage of 90,000, which he's looking to pay off in the next 2 years. He wants to use a withdrawal rate on his portfolio of 3.5%. So he's targeting an income in retirement of £21,000, which will be 3.5% of 600k, which is his portfolio, plus a bit of contributions and growth, and then less the mortgage that will be paid off. So some questions are, well, what are you going to do in retirement? You could have 60 or more years left of your life. Are you going to monetize a hobby and then you have a little bit of a purpose, a bit of income coming in? The problem is that some people don't want to spend any money setting up a business. How are you going to utilize your personal allowance before the age of 57 when you can access your SIP? That's quite a lot of tax-free money that you're not really touching. Also, you don't have a full state pension, but am I bothered? There's no discussion of a partner, so what happens if you meet someone and that changes your financial situation? So this is kind of the dark side of FIRE, where people have thought about leaving work and retiring early, but they've not really thought about enjoying life, what they're going to do in retirement, and just being a bit more entrepreneurial and having maybe a variety of income streams. For some people, even the $100 startup is too expensive for them, and I think they need to take another look at what they could achieve with their life. There are a few well-known early retirees out there. But what people don't realize is that these people make money from blogs, from YouTube, from writing articles, from endorsements, and you don't see that. All you see is their free course or various ways they project themselves online. You don't realize that they're actually getting quite a decent bit of income to supplement their portfolio. So whilst accumulating wealth, Amit isn't running much risk with his portfolio because he's still got income coming in for employment. But in retirement, he's only got a cash buffer of £4,000. His ISA might run out before the age of 57. He's got a risk of high inflation during his retirement years that might impact him adversely, the risk of a prolonged stock market downturn. So the S&P 500 had a lost decade where, first of all, there was the tech crash, then the global financial crisis. That's not too bad if you're accumulating wealth because you can buy units in the S&P 500 at a lower price. But when you're retired and there's no money coming in, then it will have a very bad effect on your portfolio. He's also got longevity risk where he might live for 60 years. The 4% rule was only based around 30-year studies, and then also the 4% rule was looking at the portfolio as a whole and that running out of money, and not a segment of the portfolio such as the ISA part that could easily run out by the age of 57 if there's bad stock market returns. And here's the illustration from my retirement calculator. So from his ISA, Amit has to pay off his mortgage, then live for about 16 years with that as his sole source of income, and it becomes a bit squeaky bum time around the age of 56 when he might run out of money, even though he has pension assets that could potentially last him for quite a long time. So my recommendation would be to build up a bigger cash buffer. So have the 600,000 after taking into account the mortgage, and then maybe another 60k in cash. That's about 3 years worth of living expenses, and then you'll have a much more enjoyable and relaxed retirement. I also recommend that Amit looks at other pension withdrawal strategies in retirement, such as Guyton guardrails, where you take varying withdrawals depending on how well the stock market is performing, and I'll put a link to the video in the description. The income of 21,000 is before tax, and although the tax burden won't be that great, the actual net amount to Amit will be less than the moderate retirement living standards that's been calculated here. Also, these data is for people living outside of London. We don't know where Amit lives, but it might be that if he lives somewhere quite expensive, that his money actually doesn't really go that far in retirement once he has a lot of spare time on his hands and he wants to enjoy his life. Amit might want to consider ditching Vanguard in retirement because Vanguard offers limited investment choices. Other platforms can potentially be cheaper in terms of the admin fees, and then some platforms are giving incentives to people if they transfer in pensions and ISAs. For example, here's some numbers from Hargreaves Lansdown that they're currently offering. Portfolio construction is much more difficult in retirement because essentially you need three buckets. One is your short-term requirements, which is like 0 to 3 years, and possibly that would be in a money market fund. Then you've got medium-term requirements, which might be up to maybe 10 years, maybe 15. That would be for Amit what he has in his ISA up to the age of 57. So these would need to be fairly stable assets that you can pretty much rely on to give you decent returns, but not to be too affected by stock market crashes. And then his longer term assets would be in the SIP, and that could easily be a global tracker. I've done a video that explains this in more depth, and I'll put a link to it in the description. There are essentially three phases that your portfolio goes through. The first one is accumulation, where you're just building your wealth. And for that stage, just having a global tracker is perfectly acceptable. In fact, it's often a very good strategy because you can focus on the number of units in the tracker that you're building rather than the monetary value. And then that way you're not so fussed about fluctuating stock market prices. The next phase is consolidation. And here you're looking to bring your wealth up to the required amount for retirement, and you're taking a more defensive strategy. And then finally, in decumulation, you're looking at how you want to spend your money. You're being much more defensive. You're looking at risks. You're considering the potential income from the portfolio and the tax efficient ways to access your money. And in the last two phases, a global tracker might not be ideal for you, and you might want a more diversified range of assets. Amit could pursue more of an income strategy in retirement. There are plenty of products that yield over 3.5%, and they might also give capital growth. So he could hold some of those, particularly if they have a low price to earnings ratio. This one has PE of less than 10. And then there's less emphasis on the US, so you're less exposed to a decline in the S&P 500. So this is the VanEck Morningstar Developed Markets Dividend Leaders. Ticker is TDGB. We've got the holdings here and some fund data. Under stable stock market conditions, my retirement calculator shows that Amit can retire at 40. However, we do know that this is unlikely to happen in reality because there's often major booms and busts in the stock market. So my advice would be to diversify the portfolio a bit more, have a greater cash buffer, look at what you want to do in retirement, and also consider monetizing a hobby to give you a passion to pursue in retirement and a little bit of extra income that you can spend on fun things. Hope you enjoyed the video. Check out the rest of my retirement case study videos, as it's a really good way to learn about the do's and don'ts of managing your finances in retirement.